All right, we're going to go ahead and start the next lesson in this unit. So we're going to be able to know and apply the remainder theorem. So a lot of what you've done, or what we just did with the factor and remainder theorem, is what you will use here. The only difference is you're not given the factor. You're actually going to have to do a couple steps to find the correct factor. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, what is a root, or what is a zero? All those are is where our graph crosses the x-axis. So where the graph crosses the x-axis. It's also known as, so we have the roots, zeros, x-intercepts. That should let you know what it is right there. When we say x-intercepts, that's all the same thing together. Now, if I had a graph, and I'm just going to show you real quick. If I had this graph, my x-intercepts is my zeros. So right here's the crosses, right here, and right here. So that's my roots or my zeros. Okay? Get used to hearing all of those word solutions is another one that you may hear. I know you heard it in 9th grade, but you may hear it from time to time here. It's just how they're written. That's the only difference. So we're going to factor the following. We're back to factoring again. Now, remember, we have multiple ways of factoring. It just depends on how many terms that we have. So we have 4 terms in this. So when we have 4 terms, we use grouping. So we'll group the 3x cubed minus 17x squared. And then we'll group the 18x and the 8. Then we have to take out the GCF in each parenthesis to see what they have in common. So if I look at 3 and the 17, I have nothing in common. However, the x cubed and the x squared, they both have an x squared. So I'm going to take out an x squared. I'm going to take that out. I'm going to be left with 3x. When I take x squared out of the negative 17x squared, I'm left with a negative 17. All right? Now, same thing with the 18x and 8. I have to find my biggest GCF, so the greatest common factor, and they both have a 2. Now, I'm going to take this sign out with it. Don't forget that. So it's going to be a positive 2. Okay? They don't both have an x, so I'm done at that point. Now, if I divide 18 by 2, I get 9, so I'm left with 9x. And then if I take and divide the 8 by 2, I get 4. So now we've done what we're used to doing with the factoring. Okay? But what is our problem? See if you can remember. You need to be able to remember this. Our problem is the parentheses don't match. And remember, when we are grouping, we have to have those parentheses match. So that's what our problem is. Not every polynomial can be factored using methods that we've done. So you're going to have a little bit of a problem trying to find those factors. So we can use synthetic division, but we have to know where to start. Okay? How do you decide what to divide by? How do you know what to put in? And that's where the rational root theorem comes in. All right, so rational root theorem states that every rational zero has the form of p over q. So p is the factors of your constant, and q is the factors of your leading coefficient. So you have to make sure you're in standard form. Never forget that. In fact, put a note in your packet. Always sure you are in standard form. That's why we discussed it so much in last unit, and you actually did it in ninth grade as well. You have to make sure it's in standard form for it to work. Okay? So let me show you what we're talking about. Okay? So our leading coefficient is 3. That is our Q. Our constant is 8. So that is our P. We've got to find our factors. What do we multiply together to get 3? Well, the only thing that we have is 1 and 3. All right? What do we multiply together? What can we multiply? All of the options that we can multiply together to get 8. 1 and 8. And then, of course, 2 and 4. So you have to be good with your multiplication. All right? Now, the next thing that we're going to do, to be able to do P over Q and note, to be able to list all your possible factors, not all of these are going to work, but this is how you're going to have to find what to use for your synthetic division. All of your P's have to go over all of your Q's. Now, a good way of looking at this, so our P's are 1, 2, 4, and 8. Our Q's, and I want to do them in different colors so you can see. Our Q's are 1 and 3. Now, for my P over Q, I'm going to take and make sure that I put each of these over each of these. Now, sometimes you'll get numbers that repeat, and if they repeat, you don't have to write them down. Okay? However, do we know if it's 2 positives or 2 negatives or a positive and a negative? No, we don't. So to be on the safe side, we always put plus minus. Then I'm going to take all of the P's and put them over 1. So 1 over 1 is 1. 2 over 1 is 2. 4 over 1 is 4. 8 over 1 is 8. Now I'm going to go back and do the same thing again, but I'm going to put them over 3. So 1 over 3 is 1/3. 2 over 3 is 2/3. And we have 4/3 and 8/3. And that's how you do the P over Q. Now, if I wanted to do synthetic division to find out what my roots are, or my factors, that is my possible options. I have a positive 1, 2, 4, 8, 1/3, 2/3, 4/3, 8/3, and I have a negative of all of those as well. Okay? So let's try this again. All right. So our leading coefficient is our Q, and then our constant is our P. So if I look at my factors of P, what can I multiply to get 10? 1, 2, 5, and 10. Now, I put mine in order. You don't do that, that's okay. I just like to have mine in order. My factors of Q, what can I multiply together to get 5? I just have 1 and 5. So now I'm going to put 1, 2, 5, and 10 over 1 and 5. But I'm going to break those down, okay? So if I do P over Q, what are my possible factors? Well, if I take all of them and put them over 1, anything over 1 is itself. So 1, 2, 5, and 10. Then I'm going to take and do all of them over 5. So 1 over 5 is 1/5. 2 over 5 is 2/5. 5 over 5 is 1, but we've already got the 1, so we don't have to rewrite that. 10 over 5 is 2. We've already got the 2. Now, if you don't recognize that, that's okay. You can go ahead and write them down. But that is listing all of your possible factors. Okay? Now, I want you to pause the video for a second, and I want you to try the next one, and then see if you get the same thing I did. Okay? All right, so you should have paused it. You should have tried this on your own to make sure that you get the same thing I do. But if I look at this, my Q is 1, my leading coefficient, and my leading coefficient is always, remember, it's always the number It is in front of my biggest exponent. So there's nothing there, it's a 1. My constant is 8, so that is my p. So my factors of p are 1 and 8, 2 and 4. My factors of q is just 1. So I'm going to take and put all of those over 1. And remember, anything over 1 is itself. The only thing that we need to add here is the plus minus. So we don't know if it is positives or negatives. We'll find that out as we get ready to start, but this is what you should have got as your answer. If you didn't, go back and check and see what you may have done differently than I did. Okay? All right, now the next one. We're going to find all the zeros now. Okay? Now, first of all, you have to do p over q. So you've got to list all the possible factors. So this is p over q. Okay? Then we're going to use these possible factors to divide. So we're going to use synthetic division. First thing we need to know, though, how many zeros are there? So if I look at this, how many zeros? Well, there is something that tells me, I want to see if y'all can remember. But if you think back, there is one thing in this polynomial that will tell you how many zeros you're going to have. And if you guess your biggest exponent, you are correct. So in this one, we're going to have three answers that we have to find, because it wants us to find all of them. All right? So first thing we're going to do is p over q. So my p is 8, and my q is 1. We actually just did this one, but I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it. So my factors of 8 are 1, 2, 4, and 8. And then my factors of 1, of course, is 1. So p over q, 1, 2, 4, and 8, all of those over 1. Anything over 1 is itself. So p over q is plus minus 1, 2, 4, and 8. Okay? That means when I get ready to do my synthetic division, I'm going to write these separate. I have a positive 1, 2, 4, and 8 that I could try. I also have a negative 1, 2, 4, and 8. So I have 8 possible choices right now. Only 3 of those are going to work. But I've got to find which 3. So we're going to use synthetic division. So, synthetic division, we have a 1, we have a negative 7, we have a 14, we have a negative 8. All right, now what do we put in front? We have 8 possible choices. This is my suggestion to you. Always try 1, 2, and 3 positive and negatives first, and go from there. This is a guess or check it, okay? For it to be a factor, don't forget it has to have a remainder of 0, okay? So, I'm going to try a positive 2. That's the first one I'm going to try, okay? Now, those can be repeated when you're doing this. I could actually use a positive 2 multiple times. You've seen that in factors when we've got x is equal to the same thing when we factored and solved. But I'm going to try 2. So if I bring down the 1, 1 times 2 is 2. Negative 7 plus 2 is negative 5. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. 14 minus 10 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. Negative 8 plus 8 is 0. So that is a factor. So we are good there. So x is equal to 2. That is one of them. We need 2 more. I have 2 options at this point. Okay? So now I have two options. All right? I can continue to guess and check, or I can factor if possible. So continue with the synthetic division, or factor if possible. And this goes back to if you like to factor or if you don't, honestly. I'm going to do both ways. This time I'm just going to continue with the synthetic division. So if you need to rewrite these, you can. So this would be, remember we go down a degree, so this would be x squared, this would be x. So we have x squared minus 5x plus 4. Now you can do synthetic division again. So 1, negative 5, and 4. And I will show you the way that I will be writing this. I don't always rewrite because it's just easier to continue the synthetic division as you're going. But right now, I'm just breaking it down to remind you of certain things. All right, next I'm going to try 1. Because remember, I told you to try the positive and negatives of 1, 2, and 3 first. You have that option. So bring down the 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Negative 5 times 1. Or sorry, negative 5 plus 1 is negative 4. 1 times negative 4 is negative 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. There is a second one. So x is equal to 1. One more. Again, we have two options right here. Okay? So two options. We can continue with the guess and check. So continue dividing. Or when we are to this point, we can set it equal to 0. And solve it. Now, the only reason I know that is because, remember, we were x squared right here, so that means we went down a degree, so this is x. So we have x minus 4. At this point, if I set it equal to 0, I'm going to get my last 1. So x is equal to, screen move, so x is equal to positive 4. Now, when you get into the fraction parts of these, you always want to try the whole numbers first. But setting it equal and solving when you have a fraction at the end is nice because then you're not having to do synthetic division in the fraction. Okay? Let's go to the next one. All right, so we're going to find all of the possible zeros. So our Q is 1, and our P is 30. So factors of P is 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, and 30. Our factors of Q is just 1. And instead of me rewriting all those again over 1, anything over 1, of course, is itself. So P over Q is 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, and 30. Now, you don't want to be sitting there doing synthetic division with the number 30. So, whenever you're looking at it, you want to try the 1, 2, and 3 positive and negative first. That's what my suggestion is. Okay? Now, if I look at this, I have 8 positives and 8 negatives. I have 16 possible zeros. How many of them are actually going to work? Only 3. Okay? So let's jump into this. Let's go ahead. All right. So we have a 1, a -8, -23, and a 30. So I said 1, 2, 3, positive and negative. I'm going to try 2 again. I don't know why I always start with that, but so bring down that 1. 1 and 2 is 2. -8 and 2 is -6. 2 and -6, -12. We get -35, -70, which gives us -40. We did not get 0. So this one right here does not work. We know that 2, the positive 2, is not a factor. Now, this is where I was telling you. You're going to get them sometimes, and sometimes you're not. One good thing is you do have a pencil. So, or you should have a pencil. Let me say it that way. 1, -8, -23, 30. Sometimes you can get down to where you're like, you can tell very quickly that it's not going to work. Let's try 1. We tried the 2, let's try the 1. So bring down 1. 1 and 1 is 1. -8 and 1 is -7. 1 and -7 is -7. -23 and -7 is -30. 1 and -30 is -30. And 30 minus 30 is 0. That one works. So one of our answers are x is equal to 1. We need 2 more. Now we're at the point where we have 2 options. We can continue on, or we can factor if possible. So let's look at it. I want you to see that if you factor, that it works just as well. So we go down in degrees, so we started with x cubed right here, so this one's going to be x squared, and then x. So we have x squared minus 7x minus 30. Now, it's 3 terms, so how would we factor that one? We would use x method, so -30, add to get -7, we've got 10 and 3. The 10 is going to be negative. So our factors are x minus 10, x plus 3. We're not completely done. Remember to solve these, we need to set them equal to 0. So x minus 10 is equal to 0, x plus 3 is equal to 0. Plus 10, so x is equal to 10. And then we're going to subtract 3. X is equal to -3. Now I have all of my zeros. So if I'm graphing this, and when we get ready to graph this, we'll be able to plot those points on a graph, okay, to help you with the right graph. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, so I want to see if you can tell me what is wrong right here. I want you to look at the function and tell me what's wrong. Those are not in standard form. So you can rewrite it to where it is in standard form, or you can just go ahead and know that your constant is b. Okay? All right, so my factors of p, and these are alike because it's 72. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 9, 12, 18, 24, 36, 72. My factors of Q, 1. So my P over Q, of course, is the plus minus of all of those. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 9, 12, 18, 24, 36, 72. Now, this is the kind that you don't want to be sitting there trying to do 72 in synthetic division, all right? Now, when you get ready to do your synthetic division, though, make sure that you flip that 18 and that 72, all right? So that way you don't mess up. So I said 1, 2, and 3. This is the first one we've had a 3 with, so let's try the 3 first, okay? So we have a 1, -5, -18, and the reason I did that, they have to be in standard form, and then 72. Let's try the 3. Let's try positive 3 first. Bring down the 1. 1 and 3 is 3. -5 and 3 is -2. 3 and -2 is -6. -6 and -18 is -24. 3 and -24 is -72. So that gives us 0. That one worked. All right, so our first one is x is equal to 3. Now I'm going to continue on. Now this is where I was telling you, you have your options. You can go ahead and factor if you want. This would end up being x squared minus 2x minus 24. If you don't want to do that, continue with a synthetic division. Now instead of rewriting it again, I know that the -24 is my constant now, okay? So let's try another number. Let's try a big number just to be different with it. Let's try a 4. We're just going to go up. I know 4 is not much bigger, but. All right, so we have 1. 1 and 4 is 4. -2 and 4. +2. And then we have 4 and 2 is 8. That does not give us 0. So I say let's try the -4. Let me put back my little drawing. You have a pencil, so you should be able to erase this. And that should be -24 right there. All right, let's do a -4. So bring down that 1. 1 and -4 is -4. -2 and -4. -6, -4, -6 is a +24. That one gave us a 0. Okay? Again, you're down to 2 options. You could continue with the synthetic division, or you could go ahead and factor, or set this one equal to 0. I'm going to go ahead and do synthetic division one more time. Okay? Because I would have x minus 6, so I know that that is my factor. Now, with that being said, I know I need to get a 0 here, and 6. To get a 0 with a -6, I need a 6, and this one always comes down. What times 1 will give me 6? And there you go. So my last one is 6. If you wanted to just guess and check and say, oh, well, let me try 3. But once I do have a 3 on the outside, if I have a 3 right here, I know 3 times 1 is not going to be 6. So I need something that would give me that. So you can work backwards with it. All right. You have 2 more. I want you to pause the video and I want you to actually try these on your own. It is lengthy. It is detailed. But I want you to try it on your own and see how you do. Okay? Or try this next one, sorry, not the last one, because it's going to have some fractions, so I'm going to work through that one with you myself. So once you've finished, you should be back now. And you should have your work already completed and just be watching to make sure you get the right thing. All right, so P, 1, 2, 4, and 8. Q is 1. So my P's over Q's. Positive, negative, 1, 2, 4, and 8. All right, so let's just try this. We have 1, -3, -6, and 8. I'm going to try, we have 1, 2, 4, and 8, so I'm going to try 2. Bring down that 1. 1 and 2 is 2. It gives me a -1, -2. That is going to be way more, so 2 does not work. All right, let's try another one. So we've got 1, -3, -6, and 8. All right, I'm going to try -2 this time. Okay, -2. So 1 is -2. -5, that is 10. Gives me a -4. That's a +4, not a -4, sorry. Which gives me a -8, and that one works. So good job. So my first one is x is equal to -2. How many do we need? We have x cubed, so we need 3. So I'm actually going to just go ahead and write these down, and then we'll fill them in. So that way you know you don't forget one. Okay? All right, you can continue synthetic division, whichever one you did, it's up to you. Or you can factor. I'm continuing with synthetic division. Now I'm going to try 1. So 1 and 1 is 1. Gives me -4. -4, that gives me 0. That one works. So x is 1. Once you do this, the more you do this, the better you're going to get at this. And you're going to be able to start recognizing some of the factors. Like right now, I want to show you how to work backwards with this. So I want 0 here. 4, or to get the 4 to be a 0, I need to have a +4. I know I always bring the first one down. 1 times what will give me 4? And there is your last factor. Okay, so you should have got -2, 1, and 4. Any order is fine. You could have got the 1 first, it does not matter. You will end up with the same values no matter what. Okay? All right, we've got one more left. All right, so this one is a little bit bigger. We're going to have 4 values. Okay, we're going 4 zeros. So my Q is 2. My P is 3. So factors of 3 are 1 and 3. My factors of Q are 1 and 2. Now then, I want to put 1 and 3 over 1 and 2. So P over Q. If I put both 1 and 3 over 1, I have 1 and 3. Then I'm going to put 1 and 3 over 2. So 1 over 2 is 1/2. 3 over 2 is 3/2. And I know you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, fractions, I don't want to use them. It's not that bad, I promise. I'm going to show you how to do it, so that way you're not freaking out. Okay? However, I'm going to go ahead and write my x equals down first. We have to have 4 of them. We've been doing 3, and that's one reason I want to go ahead, because I don't want you to leave one out. So we need all 4 of them boxes filled when we're finished. Okay? So, synthetic division, we have 2, 5, -5, -5, and 3. Now, I've always told you to try 1, 2, and 3 first. On this, try the whole numbers first. Forget them fractions or even there. Okay? Try your whole numbers first. So, let's try positive 1. So bring down that 2. 1 and 2 is 2. 5 plus 2 is 7. 1 and 7 is 7. 5 minus 7 is 2. 1 and 2 is 2. Negative 5 and 2 is negative 3. 1 and negative 3 is negative 3. We get a 0. That's our first one. Okay? Now let's continue on. So let's try the 3. So bring down that 2. 3 and 2 is 6. That gives us 13. 3 and 13 is 39. That one is not going to work. Okay? So let's try a negative 3. Okay? All right. So negative 3 and 2 is negative 6. 7 minus 6 is 1. 3 and negative 1 is negative 3. 2 and negative 3 is negative 1. Negative 3 and negative 1 is 3. That one actually worked. So negative 3. All right, so we tried the positive 1 and we tried the positive 1 and positive 3. We tried the negative 3. Let's try the negative 1. That's the only other whole number there is. So we're going to try 1. So that's 2. 1 and 2 is 2. 1 and 2. Sorry, we've already done the positive. Let's do the negative. So negative 1 and 2 is a negative 2. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 and 1 is 1. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. So that one works. So a negative 1. Now we're left with, we can retry 1 and 3, positive and negative. We already know that positive 3 does not work. Because if it worked, it would have worked before already. So you can retry that. However, if I look at this, if we look at this right here, that's what we just got. We can tell that 3 is not going to work at all. So we know 3 is not working. So if the 3 doesn't work, there's nothing we can do with a negative 3 to get the 2 and the negative 1. So if we look at that, let's say, okay, well, what about the 1 and the negative 1? Could they repeat? Possibly, but you're going to have to do something to that 2 to get it to a 1. So you're going to have to make it smaller. Well, 1's not going to do anything except keep 2 a 2. So we know now, set this one equal to 0. And solve. So we go down a degree. First one was 4, then we had a 3, 2, and now this was a 1. So we have 2x minus 1, and let's set it equal to 0. If we set it equal to 0, add 1, we have 2x is equal to 1, divide by 2, x is equal to 1/2. So that is how you deal with the ones with the fractions. A fraction wound up being one of our answers. However, it was easy to solve because we had the whole ones in there. All right? So practice this. It is a little bit tedious. It takes a little bit of time. But you'll start seeing the factors that actually work as you're doing it. The more you do it, they'll be able to stand out to you. So if you have any questions, just ask.